Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bloodborne Kirkhammer, the playthrough on the PlayStation 4, of course. Well guys, this is actually going to be post-commentary, so it may sound a little bit different, and I may be a lot more coherent than I usually am, or a lot less, one or the other. Basically, the first time I played through this section was right after I'd tackled Bergenworth in the Vacuous ROM, and as you could tell from those previous episodes, I wasn't in the best of moods to be handling a game of this sort. There are some parts of, particularly the latter portions of Bloodborne, that I'm disappointed in. I feel like they went to too much effort to try to make the game difficult rather than, interesting or challenging. And so I got, well, just a little bit salty. Okay, I got so salty that having listened to the commentary afterwards, I made the determination that I did not want to release that and put it on a YouTube channel. I didn't say anything inappropriate or anything that I really think I disagree with. I just, basically, I harped on my complaints with the game too much. And you can definitely harp on it too much. If anything, I can definitely emphasize the negative parts of games a little more than maybe they really should be emphasized. But, for the purposes of a channel that does reviews like my main channel at FoxeoGames, I would rather someone be too negative than too positive. I think, the too negative side, well, you can look at a game and look at someone's complaints and say to yourself, okay, that's not a big deal to me. But if someone's too positive, well, it's hard to really gauge if they're being positive because it's really a positive experience, or if they're just being overwhelmingly positive because that's the type of person they are. And I think it's harder to figure out if something would be a negative for you if they don't even point it out or if they don't even bring it up. Like, for example, in Bloodborne, very few people mention the slight bit of input lag that can exist, or the lag that happens where an attack will be queued up. The one I've talked about it like 1,000 times in this playthrough, where you go to attack, something hits you and staggers you out of your attack, then when you recover from that attack, you suddenly attack again without having given a second input. Also, right there, as you notice, sometimes you can actually phase through enemies. You can stick your gun through an enemy and fire right through them instead of at them. Enemies can do the same to you. So those little things are, well, I guess not surprisingly anymore knowing game reviews, but to me at least somewhat surprising that I'm one of the only people who reviewed Bloodborne and mentioned those. I looked at a whole bunch of other reviews after I made my Bloodborne review. See, I didn't want to watch reviews before I made mine because I felt like it would really taint my opinion. Like, I might see something and go, oh yeah, I should comment on that. But if it's not something that stood out to me independently on my own, then I don't really want it to be something that I mention in my review. I don't want my reviews to be a compilation of other people's thoughts and feelings. I want them to be my perspective, my thoughts, my feelings, and what stood out to me, and what I feel is worth noting. But yeah, I was shocked that after I finished my Bloodborne review, I was then free to watch all the reviews. I watched as many as I could find from all the big channels. Not like some of the crap channels like Polygon and Craptaku. I don't bother with their crap. But, most of the other ones that are respectable. And nobody mentioned the input lag, nobody mentioned the, clipping issues, nobody mentioned the problem of the firearms going straight through enemies. I mean, there were a few people like Epic Namebro and whatnot, or, Epic Namebro and a German Spy, who would mention it in their playthrough episodes, but, if you mention something about a game in one episode of a playthrough, well, how many episodes do you have there? You've got, 15, 20, 25 episodes of the playthrough. Each episode is about 45 minutes to an hour long. So, that's a lot of time in which, a person would have to watch through that entire series. Most people would end up having to watch the entire series to find that opinion in there. So opinions are a lot more valuable when they're in a more condensed, easy-to-digest format, like, a simplistic 10-minute or 15-minute review video. I was also shocked to find that there were a few reviews out there that, well, they were called reviews, but they weren't really reviews. One of them I watched was a 10-minute long quote-unquote review in which the reviewer did pretty much nothing other than praise the game. This reviewer heaped praise upon praise on the game, then simply described all the game's features, layout, storyline, combat mechanics, just in a descriptive fashion, like even a non-opinionated descriptive fashion, almost like an objective list of what the game has in it, and then only made one opinionated comment that could possibly be interpreted as negative. And this reviewer commented on the load times, but said that they basically weren't a big deal. So even when trying to mention a negative, this individual actually acted as if it wasn't a negative at all. And you'll notice that sometimes when people like a game and they review it, they talk as if the negatives aren't really negatives at all, which they are. Negatives are always negatives, but we can put differing levels of value on the negatives. Like, there are certain negatives in games that particular people will absolutely hate, and other people won't care about so much. Excuse me, I'm yawning. Alright guys, post-com allows me to talk about a whole lot of other things without worrying about the game. This part is interesting in that my first time through the game, I didn't really have any trouble killing these ghostly women characters, but for some reason, I seem to get hit by them a lot more in my subsequent playthrough. So I don't know if it's the choice of weapon that makes a difference or what, but one thing I'm really excited about doing in the near future is a playthrough the game in which I use the threaded cane, because that's just kind of a fun weapon, in my opinion. I started my very, very, very first playthrough Bloodborne with the threaded cane. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the best weapon to choose as a beginner. I would definitely recommend either the saw cleaver or the hunter's axe. I would have to say that the threaded cane, I wouldn't say it's like an expert or no, what's the phrase I want to use for this? See, even in post-com I forget what I'm trying to say. I would say it's a more challenging way to start the game out, because the threaded cane requires a bit more practice to get used to. The whip portion of it does have some length on the attack. It's a good distance attack, but it is very, very, very hard to gauge how far it extends because of the visual effect of the whip. Like, it kind of curves and twists and really throws off your ability to gauge how far that attack will go. And then when you put it in cane form versus whip form, it definitely feels like a very different weapon. It's almost like a sort of like maybe like a short sword. So getting used to the two vastly different forms of the weapon, combined with the whip form of the weapon having a very difficult to gauge attack radius, combined also with the fact that it doesn't do the most damage. It is the weakest of those weapons that you can pick at the start, makes it, to me, for the more advanced players, for the more experienced players. So first playthrough, definitely go with saw cleaver or the hunter's axe. My recommendation? Well, the saw cleaver has some advantages in that as a saw weapon, it does extra damage to several beast bosses, including one of the first bosses you fight in the game, as well as a boss that has ramped up difficulty that doesn't match its location. Vicar Amelia, she is a little more difficult than what her location would indicate. You know, she's like, it's almost as if she belongs in a part of the game like 10 levels after when she actually shows up. That does some massive damage there, doesn't it? But yeah, if you want to go with the threaded cane, hey, knock yourself out, don't let me stop you. Now, the thing about the Kirkhammer, though, is that the longsword form, as far as I can tell, is darn near identical, if not 100% identical, in moveset to the Ludwig's Holy Blade. Oh, why am I yawning so much? To the Ludwig's Holy Blade, however you want to pronounce it. I don't care. It's a rose by any other name. A sword by any other name. However, the claymore, people like to call it a greatsword form of the Holy Blade. I call it more like a claymore. In my opinion, it's kind of like a big, thick claymore. It has this very similar moveset. Wow, that guy can really, really stab you for some good damage there. Those guys can attack super fast, kind of out of nowhere, with very little telegraph. See, right there? So they do feel a bit frustrating at times. Oh, and right there, I missed. Gave him a chance to come in and get me. I do notice that very few things in this game will actually interrupt you. Interestingly enough, when I tried to interrupt him, I actually knocked him down with my firearm rather than fail an interrupt. See, same thing again there. Not sure if he can be interrupted or just gets knocked down. I know the dogs in this game cannot be interrupted, however, any firearm shot will knock them down and is actually very useful. That's more useful for the purposes of the attacking dogs than it is if you were able to interrupt them, because the dogs don't have enough health that you would worry about doing an interrupt, but they do come at you quite quickly and can attack fast and move fast, and so being able to knock them down is helpful. I think I ended up doing several rounds of this trying to farm some blood chunks off these guys, but ultimately I think the blood chunk that drops once, I think I get one drop. I believe that was the only drop I ever got, even after several farming sessions. These guys do an excessive amount of damage. I mean, look at that hit from that guy back there. Just massive amounts of damage. So I feel like the game ramps up in difficulty as you progress, but doesn't necessarily feel like it's done very well. It's not as bad as I make it sound in my salty playthrough episodes, but, you know, just taking enemies and having them do massive quantities of damage, to me, is not the solution. It will never stop feeling cheap to me. But then again, I have always hated games that have this approach of one-shot killing you. I don't even like games in which you only take one shot to die. I feel like, you know, we're human beings, and the amount of concentration and focus and perfection required to get through an extremely difficult section without taking a single hit is, you know, I think it's an excessive requirement. Wow, I just about died there. That was close. We can do this. Come on, ladies. Be nice. There we go. So as you notice in post-com, there is an extreme tendency to talk about everything other than the game. Whereas during live-com, there's far more tendency to discuss what's actually happening in the game and to respond to the game. And in some ways, I don't mind live-com versus post-com, but ultimately, I would probably prefer people do post-commentary, but also to at least a certain extent stick to topics related to video games, and preferably when possible the specific game they're playing. I don't demand it though. A lot of people will get upset if you do a commentary but don't always stay on topic to the game itself. But I think playing one game can certainly lead you to thoughts and feelings and interesting comments to make on gaming in general, and not just the particular game in question that you're playing. You know, you could compare it to other games in a series, or you can compare it to other games in general. And then also talk about general gaming trends, like difficulty in games. Like, I think Dark Souls, even though Demon Souls was the first, what really didn't help Demon Souls catapult the Souls name, what made it sort of this very niche, very cult classic, was the fact that not only was it the first one, but it was also an exclusive. And there's no denying that exclusives generally lead to less popularity by the sheer fact that there are fewer people who can play them. Now, you do get some exclusives which end up being super popular. Obviously, Nintendo has several of those exclusives: Mario, Metroid, the Kirby series. You know, you've got all those, Smash Brothers. There are other exclusives as well, like the Halo series on Xbox. But for the most part, especially with a more niche market game like this one, going exclusive really hurts the community aspect of it. And I think Bloodborne's exclusivity made certain that Bloodborne wouldn't get a similar treatment to the other Souls games. We will never know, we will never ever know, ever, no matter what, and I'll clarify that later, no matter what, we will never know if Bloodborne would have enjoyed the success of Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2, and not success in terms of sales and popularity and how many people talk about it and play it and stream it and upload content. Because as much as I didn't like Dark Souls 2, obviously it garnered more of a community support than Bloodborne did for any number of reasons. Wow, look at that. I barely survived that encounter. We will never know if Bloodborne would have done that had it been a 3-system game. If Bloodborne had come out on Xbox One, PS4, and PC, I think it would have received reception roughly equal to or better than Dark Souls 2. Now, when I say that, I mean in terms of its popularity, how many people play. Yep, I was killed. No, that's where I got really salty. Not surprisingly. And when I say reception, I don't just mean critical reception. I mean, you know, in terms of sales, how many people play it, how many people stream it, how many people upload content. I think it would have gotten better community response in terms of the amount of people who actually like it and didn't criticize it. Because certainly Dark Souls 2 got a huge backlash against it for many different reasons. And I think one of the biggest issues was that it was called Dark Souls 2, and it shouldn't have been. It should have been just another game in the series. You know, you could have called it Dragon Souls or whatever, I don't care. But call it something other than Dark Souls 2. And as I release this video, or as I record this will give you an idea of when I recorded this post-com. The unofficial rumors about Dark Souls 3 are swirling around. And there's talk of the PC version of Dark Souls 3 not being a surefire thing, and I think that would be a huge mistake, because both Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 sold very well on PC, far beyond profitable. I mean, way beyond profitable. So there's no question that releasing the Souls games on PC was a profitable venture. It was. And considering how badly the port was made for Dark Souls, that's saying something. I mean, that is saying something when you make a crap port and people still buy it up. You know, people still bought Dark Souls like they were McDonald's French fries. I don't know why I use that example, but you know what I'm saying. People bought it up like crazy, and it was a terrible port. I mean, you had to install DS Fix and some other stuff just to get it working like a normal PC game should work. But the fact that people bought into it that much meant something. It meant people wanted it. It meant people liked it. It meant people are willing to get the Souls games on PC. They have a large base on PC. So there's no question in my mind, not releasing Dark Souls 3 or any future Souls game on the PC would unquestionably be a mistake. Sorry, I was having trouble with this lock-on here. Like, for some reason the lock-on quit at one point, and then I couldn't get it to lock back on and turn around behind me to the enemy behind me. So I can't complain too much about the lock-on. Well, I could, but legitimately the lock-on usually works, although there are times in which you don't actually... your character doesn't seem to follow the lock-on properly. But this is not, thank goodness, Dark Souls 2, and the lock-on works a lot better than it does in that game. In Dark Souls 2, your lock-on was oftentimes almost like just a suggestion. It was like the lock-on was a suggestion to your player where you would like them to attack or move or whatever, but your player character didn't always obey that command. So you would often in Dark Souls 2 be locked onto an enemy, and you would attack, and you wouldn't attack in the direction you're locked onto, which, whoa, I survived that. Okay. That's good. And of course, you know, when you're locked onto something and you attack while locked on, what's your expectation? Well, of course, your expectation is you attack in the direction you're locked onto. So I thought that was nothing short of a bad idea to make a lock-on that's, I guess, maybe in Tanimura's mind, the director for Dark Souls 2, he was thinking of that game as being a more fluid game with more fluid animation. I will not deny that character models in that game had more fluid animation. It looked more natural. In Dark Souls, the character animation of movement can be a bit stilted and can almost seem a bit jerky. But the more fluid animation of Dark Souls 2 led to a wide variety of problems, none of which made that additional fluidity worth the price, in my opinion. I find that although the movement in Dark Souls is hard to get used to once you play more fluidly moving games, if that's a phrase, like fluidly moving, when you play games with better movement, still, I far prefer the movement in Dark Souls to Dark Souls 2 for all the reasons I listed, that, you know, it doesn't have all those deep flaws that Dark Souls 2 did. Bloodborne, on the other hand, fixes a lot of the flaws that came up in Dark Souls 2 and gives you even more fluid movement, more control over your character than Dark Souls 2 did. So It's even harder to go back to Dark Souls now, given that you have just an extreme amount of control over your character in Bloodborne. I mean, like, try running and turning directions in Bloodborne, and then go try running and turning directions in Dark Souls, and you'll see what I mean. That's just one of the many things that makes a big difference. To be honest, I wasn't really sure what was catching me in that paralysis move. I guess, okay, I guess it's one of these characters. I don't know what does it, and I don't know where it comes from, so I didn't really know how to avoid it. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to get to the treasure chest over there. I thought I had to jump on some tables, but that wasn't the case. The Knight's Garb set. There's also a hat that goes with it, which I don't feel like really matches it, so I wear the crown instead. But I like the Knight's Garb set. I wear that sometimes on my main character for PvP. And then I wear that with the Crown of Illusions, I think, the crown you get after beating the boss of this area. And I think that looks like a pretty good set. It looks very regal, very royal almost. You know, the Knight set in this game is nothing like it is in the other Souls game. It's not... Oh, well, that's that. And after this point, guys, we're going to move on to live comm, so I will see you in a second with live commentary. Well, guys, you may not have noticed, but I had to cut the video from before. We went just from post-comm there. Now we're back in live comm, and we're going to pick it back up here. Yeah, my live commentary, again, was a little salty. I wasn't in the right mood to be playing a game that has, you know, the kind of challenge that a Souls game has, which I still consider this basically a Souls game. One thing you may notice, right now it's hard to notice it because there's so much on the screen, but if I go into the menus, you'll notice it. These white specks all over the screen. That's my capture card. When I first got it, I didn't really notice that much. But then as time went on, I noticed it more and more, that all these tiny little white specks appear, which are basically little artifacts. It means there's something wrong with the hardware. I've tried moving it into a different PCI slot. I've tried using different HDMI cables. I've tried using multiple different consoles. Let me make sure the volume is set at the right amount. Yeah, 60, okay. And let me make sure my volume is set the right amount. Yep, it's just a loud segment of the game. Okay. Yeah, I've tried different consoles. It happens on the PS3, the PS4, the PS TV, the Wii U. It happens with all sorts of different HDMI cables, with or without my HDMI. Oh, gosh darn it. I really felt like I dodged that, but, you know. So it is the card, and ironically, not ironically, that's not the right word, but strangely, I had to return the first card I got because it had the garbled audio issue, which is actually quite a common problem with the AverMedia Game Broadcaster HD. This one I got, after about a week or so, I started to see these little tiny white dots, but it wasn't a big deal. Like, I could barely see them. They didn't happen that often, and so I thought, well, you know, I really don't feel like returning a second one. Maybe it's not a big deal. And now they're just getting worse, and it's been months, though. It's been months and months. Sometimes they're really bad, and sometimes they don't appear at all. I can't figure out what the conditions are for it. I'm not sure why sometimes they appear and sometimes they don't. It doesn't seem to be based on any factor that I can control. But I'm going to have to order another one. And I'm going to see if I can... Can I hop down here? I can. Darn it. All right, that didn't work out. I'm going to see if it's possible to get like a refund or a refurbish or a repair on this one from AverMedia. And in the meantime, I really can't wait without it. Like, the only other device I have to record this is going to limit me to 720p, which I don't want to do. So I'm just going to order a second one. And if they send me back the original one and it's fixed and works properly, then I'll just go ahead and probably either sell it online or put it in another computer, or, I don't know, hang on to it as a backup. So, you know, I don't know what I'll do with it. So, when I'm done with this segment of the playthrough, I'll go ahead and order that. I gotta remember that because I already did half of this section, or half of this episode of the playthrough, I'm only going to 22 minutes on this segment. So I gotta remember that. So I gotta remember that, 22 minutes. Don't go past 20, 22, 23 minutes. I can really go to 23 minutes and still hit 45, but, you know, just to be careful, I want to go 22. I love how they flail on the ground. These guys can drop bloodstone chunks. That's really what I want right now. Why'd I do that? What I might, yeah, see, can you see the white specks right there? Dancing all over the screen? Easy to see when you're on the menu. Maybe they won't appear as well in the recorded footage after it's been recorded, edited, rendered, and uploaded to YouTube because of the compression. The compression might somewhat hide the flaws. But yeah, the artifacts are getting too excessive, for me at least, when I view it while I'm playing it. These are just some of the little issues you run into dealing with capture devices. In capture devices, there is no one perfect device, guys. Trust me. Every device has its good and bad, and you know, a lot of them have really bad software, and some of them are unreliable. Software will crash, it'll stop recording, it'll do this, it'll do that. I mean, capture hardware and software has just had this long, complicated history of having problems, and sometimes working and sometimes not. And I don't know what to say about it. It is what it is, you know. I like how you can knock these guys down, but I'm not sure if that means you can't interrupt them. If shooting them automatically knocks them down, does that mean you cannot do an interrupt followed by a visceral, which is a parry riposte? All right. I don't mind running back through here killing everything because I want the opportunity to get those bloodstone chunks. I don't have the rune yet. I don't think I have the rune yet for additional item discovery, but when I get it, I want to use that as soon as possible. You know, because it just improves your likelihood of getting an item, finding the items that you want. These guys have like a sonar attack, which is a ranged attack. It does significant damage, more than I think it should, really. But that's one of the tactics they use for difficulty in this game. They just have stuff do insane amounts of damage. Nope, not what we wanted. That was also a Demon Souls tactic for some enemies. Not very many, though, but some. You know, I'm often disappointed by a Souls game when it uses a cheap tactic like that. Like, oh, well, instead of having an interesting mechanic or instead of having the enemy do something challenging, let's just have the enemy, you know, do massive amounts of damage. And then that's how they sort of do the challenge. Let me see where this goes, because if I can get up here via a shortcut, then I want to take that from now on. Is this the shortcut at the start of the level? It is. Okay, it is the shortcut at the start of the level. Okay. Yeah, it's always good to know where your shortcuts are. Dark Souls 2 didn't do much with shortcuts, and I think the reason that I'm going to send that down just in case I need it later. And I think, you know, as much as I and others will complain about Dark Souls 2 complete lack of shortcuts, or at least lack of good shortcuts, in some ways, yeah, you can see the white specks here. It's really bad. Wow, it's really bad, guys. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to order another card and then start using that. Oh, I just saw that treasure chest I missed last time. I got to kill this guy first. He'll hit me way too often. Notice the lock-on chose to lock on to someone below me and to the side rather than the enemy directly in front of me, which makes no sense. You know, I had an enemy directly in front of me and it did not choose to lock on. Okay. I have no idea why I just did a jump attack. I didn't hit any buttons whatsoever. That was... Oh, that's so cheap. Okay. Just have everything do massive amounts of damage and strike really fast in succession and stagger. So, you know, that's what they do. Yeah, you can see those specs. They're bad. They're really bad. I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm going to get a hold of Avermedia, see if they'll refurbish this one. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have time to send it off and wait, so I'm going to have to pick up a second one. And in fact, let me check it out right now. I'm sure you guys won't mind. And let's go to Amazon.com, because I remember they were on sale for a while, and I really hope they're still on sale right now, because they were on sale for like a super cheap price. I remember it was like $50 off or something. Yep, they're still $50 off. Okay. Not sure if that's like a permanent sale or just a temporary sale, but you know, whatever. They're normally $155. When I bought it, they were at like nearly the $200 price range because they were newer. But now they're at an average about $155 is what they usually run at. But Amazon's selling it right now for $105. This is the Avermedia Game Broadcaster HD. It's a capture card. It's an actual PCI card that has to go on a PCI slot on your motherboard and your computer. So no, you cannot use it with a laptop, and you can't use it with a computer that doesn't have an open slot available for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to order it right now, guys. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. I gotta get this thing, and I'm going to hope that it does not have. I gotta hope that it does not have the audio problem, the garbled audio, which is a lot of these have garbled audio, I've been told. The first one I got had it, and then I'm also going to hope that it doesn't have this white specks problem that you know, mine has. So just confirming it's the right one. Yep, Game Broadcaster HD records up to 1080p 60 frames per second. So, you know, and that's 1080p, not 1080i. There's a big difference there. As you'll find out if you become an uploader. You really, really need to note that 1080i and 1080p are two different things. Two very different things. You want 1080p, basically, particularly for video games. So let me order this now, because I don't want to run the risk that at any point in time they'll stop running this deal here. $50, yeah, $50 off. It's $105. So $100 for a 1080p 60 frames per second capture card. Man, you can't beat that. You cannot beat that. And then, of course, if there's any problem with it, I can just immediately return it and buy another one. I do regret getting my 144 hertz monitor. Not that I love it during certain times, like when I'm playing Witcher 3 or something by myself without recording. It's awesome. I love, you know, the 144 hertz and all that stuff. But at this, did I die? Yes, I did. Okay. But I can only record up to 60 frames. Well, I can record higher than that, but there's no point in recording more than 60 frames per second because YouTube is limited to 60. And on top of that, a lot of videos, if I watch them on my main monitor, just the frame rate looks wonky because it's 144 hertz refresh rate. Let me send this back down in case I die again. Ironically, or strangely enough, my first time through here, I had no problem with this whole area. Like, I don't think I died once in the entirety of Canehurst. But now I seem to be dying repeatedly over and over again. Why? I don't know. Why am I dying? When you do a plunge attack, you want to do an R2. I've noticed that that does so much more damage. You know what I never do? I never use the L2s. Oh, that's like a slash attack. That could be very useful. Crowd control. Watch. Oh, you can't combine, or you can't follow it up with another slash attack. It has a very, very slow combo rate. Okay. No, get out of there. Yeah, they love in these games lately, since Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne, to have enemies that lurch forward like a ridiculous amount to hit you, as kind of that sort of, haha, I got you. Because you look at the enemy, and you kind of gauge what you consider to be a reasonable distance the enemy will travel during an attack. Unfortunately, most enemies travel more than that, what you consider to be reasonable distance. And again, that's more of that aha gotcha moment of trying to add artificial difficulty. It's not, to me, it's not a natural difficulty, it's not a reasonable difficulty. Kind of like stuff that one-shots you, or stuff that drops out of nowhere that you can't see. This game doesn't have a lot of that. Some games will pull that stunt where something just comes out of nowhere and there was no way to know it was coming, and by the time you know it's there, you're already hit. The Souls games typically don't do that. Wait a minute. Oh, I have to run along the tables to get there. Yeah, Souls games typically aren't that cheap. They'll allow you the opportunity to see what's coming as long as you're observant enough. I'm gonna flatten you, lady. I don't think they ever drop anything. I've never seen them drop anything. We may not make it to the boss fight in this episode, but I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that? I need to upload a video, and it's probably already going to be up by the time any of you see this video. Evelyn. Because, you know, I work on a basis where I have videos uploaded and scheduled and ready to go on YouTube long before you see, like, 3 episodes prior. So, like, right now, you're seeing this episode. I've probably got episodes up to 3, 4, 5 ahead of this already uploaded and ready to go. And that's just something that allows me to continue to release content at a good rate. Because let's say, for example, that something suddenly happens and I'm unable to play any games for 2 or 3 days. Having stuff uploaded for a week ahead of time makes it easy for you guys to not even notice that there was a break. Whereas if I upload one a day and play at the rate of 1 episode a day, well, if 1 day goes by that I can't play, then, you know, an episode comes up missing. And that sucks. And that happens a lot. But at the same time, the benefit of me playing 1 a day at that rate and then uploading is that you guys can comment and I can respond to and incorporate the comments immediately. Whereas at the rate I'm going right now, if you guys comment on an episode, I won't even really be able to incorporate or respond to the comment until 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes later. Which is, you know, it is what it is. These guys are really, really tough because they move so fast. I think they have basically like a Rider Palash type weapon. I wanted to sneak up behind him, but it's too late now, obviously. What the heck? No, I do not accept. See how he lurches forward more than what you would consider to be a reasonable distance? And then he can get up off the ground and quickly attack you faster than seems reasonable. And again, it's more of that ha 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 gotcha kind of stuff that I don't like. I don't like that stuff. That and the fact that some like really, really big, lumbering, brutish enemies that are way too big to be moving fast will suddenly lurch forward at breakneck speeds just to sort of get you. Like, I don't like that either. I feel like if an enemy appears to be really big and slow moving, it should be slow moving. It shouldn't suddenly take off with incredible speed unless that's incorporated into the lore somehow. In this case, in the case of Dark Souls 2 and some enemies of Bloodborne, they simply have that as a way to artificially add difficulty. Whereas if you look at Dark Souls 2, if anything is slow moving, it's slow moving and that's that. It doesn't suddenly become incredibly agile. Maybe you could say the Crystal Golems with their jump attack, but again, you can see it coming, you know, it's I don't consider them unreasonable at all. Oh, wow. He went flying. Wow, he went flying. Did you guys see that? Anyway, of course you guys saw that. You're watching. That guy went flying. I don't know what to tell you. Alright, yeah, I gotta take my time through here. I think part of it also is that I have a little bit lower health than I normally do when I get here. Notice that their blood appears almost purplish. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's just me. Huh? Where are these ladies at? Why they be screaming? Stop your screaming. I'm not sure where they are. Maybe they're through the wall. I think maybe they were screaming through the wall on the other side right there, because I don't recall there being any of the ghosts in this level. Did I get the attention of that guy? Yeah, I think I did. Now, I don't know if you can wait here and he'll forget about you. Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, he does. Okay. He makes it really obvious, too. He's like, okay, never mind. I don't know what that sound was. Forget it. Yeah, those guys up on the little ladder devices or stair steppers or whatnot, they'll shoot you with these little darts, and they're really massively annoying. Like, they don't do a ton of damage, but yeah, they'll cause you to die way more often than you would initially think. Why don't you get on the ground and take a R2 to the face? Why don't you get on the ground and take another R2 to the face? Oh, come on now. You cannot reliably stagger them to death. You have to be careful, because if you try to just R1 your way through them, they will often recover and then start hitting you. And yeah, you gotta be careful. Especially if you have a slower swinging weapon. There are many enemies in this game that you can reliably just stagger to death. You can just R1 your way through them. And that's fine, I don't mind that. But some you can't, so you just gotta be aware of that. Don't try to R1 your way through an enemy that's going to recover quickly, because that won't work out for you. Quicksilver bullets. There's a little bit of a yellow tint to the ground right here. I don't know why, or if that's even intended, or if it's glitch. I can't figure it out, but whatever. It's all good. we're almost at the end of this episode. What the heck? Oh, come on now. There we go, finally. Finally. Give me them blood chunks. Bloodstone chunks, I mean. Oh, we have enough now to upgrade our weapon, so we should definitely upgrade. It's always in your best interest to upgrade as soon as possible. You may not necessarily want to sacrifice a lot of progress made in the level to do it, but, you know, definitely try to upgrade before the boss. As soon as you get to the shortcut is a great time to decide to upgrade. Yeah, I've been in here, and if I remember correctly, there's nothing else in here that we need. We're done in here. Okay. No point in bothering with that again. I want to open up this other shortcut before we end this episode, but I may not be able to do that. Oh, yes, I will. It's right here. It's right here. I thought there was an enemy in here. Nope. Okay. Now, the first time I opened this up, I had no idea that there was a ladder on the side of it. I mean, it's obvious now, but if you just watch it open, you figure, okay, it's open. Okay, I'm going to run through here, and now I'm going to continue. Oh, okay, I'm back. Okay, so you turn around, you go this way, and it's so easy to go, oh, well, I can't even go back. Are you kidding me? So where do I go now? I didn't get a key. I was so lost. It's so easy to completely miss the fact that there's a ladder right there. I'm not the only one that feels this way. Many people agree with me. Many intelligent people. And some stupid people agree with me too. Alright. What's up here? Ah, treasure chest. Kaz, or some say Kazum. Oh gosh, I hate that voice actor. I mean, he does a great job for what he does, but that voice is so annoying. And then the way he's howling during the fight, you know, Mikalash, or Mikalash, however you pronounce it. You know, host of the nightmare. Oh gosh, that guy. He does a great job being really annoying. You feel like if you run all the way down here, they ought to reward you with something for your time and efforts. Am I right? They do. Blood chunk dude. Blood chunk dude, that's definitely worth it. Oh, 2 blood chunks. That's twice as definitely worth it. Although I don't think that's really a phrase. Twice as definitely. Although that's my new phrase now, guys. I want you guys to use that and quote me. Twice as definitely. This area reminds me so much of the Duke's Archives. And I think that may be intentional to some degree, or it may be unintentional. Who knows? Alright, guys. Well, we're coming towards the end of our time frame here. Let's go ahead and call it here, because I'll know where to go from here, obviously. And I will see you guys next time for the next episode of Bloodborne Kirkhammer playthrough. I'll try not to be so salty in future episodes so I don't have to go back and do post-com. That's my punishment for being salty. I gotta go back and do post-commentary. So it takes me twice as long to get it all done. Twice the work. Anyway, guys, I will see you next time. Have a good one, everyone.